Hello, hello, LinkedIn, my Facebook group, YouTube, wherever I'm streaming this today. So, those of you that know me know I am a trainer, consultant, and speaker on the topic of growing your business and professional brand using LinkedIn, but that I am also now quite addicted to Clubhouse, and I facilitate a very special council of a networking group. How is that all related? It's all related by relationships, and relationships, there are no shortcuts to relationships. You've heard me say that. And that's how they all fit together. I've also been giving quite a few talks for networking groups and companies and organizations, and I get a lot of the same questions. So last week I did go live and answer some of the questions that I get. Thought I'd do that again today. I haven't been having my typical guests for my LinkedIn Lives. I've been so busy with other things. So if you're joining me live, I'm sure you have questions. Pick my brain, get some free consulting, ask those questions about LinkedIn, about Clubhouse, about networking, stuff like that. All right. So what questions did I get in the past week? The first question that I got was from someone who was concerned about the behavior on LinkedIn where your connections don't really know their connections, and therefore they're not going to be comfortable making an introduction for you. What I said about that was it's very important to have a LinkedIn connection strategy or philosophy. Now, when I started on LinkedIn, I said to myself, okay, I'm only going to connect with people I actually know, who I've met in person, or have had a substantial conversation with online. And that worked for a while. But then what happened was I'd go to a conference. Remember when we could go to conferences back in the day out in person? I would go to a conference, I would meet somebody, we'd have a great conversation, we'd connect. And if we didn't follow up and have future conversations, that relationship wasn't as strong. So I would not be likely to introduce them or them me, and I didn't know them so well. I didn't get rid of those connections, but if somebody wanted to meet them or I wanted to meet someone through them, it would be a sign to me that I should strengthen that relationship and I should reach out and say, hey, we met at the XYZ conference, but we don't really know each other. How about we change that? And then that person is much more likely to make that referral or that introduction for me. I also have noticed that related to that, because there are people who will just connect with anybody and everybody, right? That dilutes your network. Now, should you go back and get rid of people? Not necessarily. It's a lot of work depending on how many connections you have. But if you connect with somebody and you get that dreaded connect and pitch, the first thing you get is some kind of a pitch, hey, let's get on the phone, then you might want to disconnect from them on LinkedIn. I'm also noticing something really fascinating, and I can't remember if I talked about this last week on my live episode. I did write about it. Clubhouse, which, as you know, I love. For those of you who don't know what it is, a quick aside, it's an audio-only app. It's in beta, iPhone only. It's addicting and wonderful and conversation and just a lot of things. I'm meeting a lot of people there, either as a participant in a room, a listener in a room, a speaker in a room. They call the conversations rooms. And then if someone sends me a connection invite, I am, of course, much more likely to connect with them. Whereas if that same person had sent me a connection request on LinkedIn, even if they sent a message with it, I would have been a little suspicious because there's so much bad behavior and pushy selling that I would say, all right, this person looks interesting, but why do they want to connect with me? Who are they? Now, of course, I can ask them ahead of time, which I sometimes do. I'll reply first and I'll say, I like to have a strong network here. Curious, what made you want to connect with me? And that may start a dialogue. But when you meet somebody either in person, in a networking group, virtually, on Clubhouse, you already know them a little bit before you connect with them on LinkedIn. So, just a tip that it's a great place to meet people. And it makes those connection requests more likely to be accepted. So it's kind of interesting. And it makes me start to think about how can we make our connection requests on LinkedIn better, especially if it's somebody we don't know. Now, as you know, I do a lot of networking and I guide people on their networking. So I always prefer, before reaching out to somebody that I don't know, I prefer to see if I could get an introduction to them from someone in my network. And actually, I shared a great technique for doing that in the networking group that I facilitate this morning. So, having those specific requests of your referral partners are incredibly powerful. What if you don't have a connection? What if they're further away or the connection between you doesn't really know them or isn't comfortable making that request? Or you don't know that person well enough, even though they're in your network, to ask them. Little trick. If the person is active on LinkedIn, that means that they share content or they comment on other people's content. You can essentially start a conversation with them by commenting back on something they've posted. What if you ask them a question? What are they going to do? They're going to reply. They're going to answer that question. You've just started a conversation. So if you send them a connection request after that, mentioning the conversation you had, they're much more likely to connect. So if you're watching live, if you're watching in replay, I already went over a couple frequently asked questions and they all were sort of connected today. But if you have any questions, put them in the chat and share this out to invite your friends. I don't know how long I'm going to stay on live today, but happy to answer some questions. What else did people ask me today? They asked, and people always ask this, is the paid version worth it? Paid version of LinkedIn. And what I like to say is, it's like a gym membership. If you use it, it's typically worth it. But if you're using the free version and you're not hitting any roadblocks, like the commercial search limit, where they say, oh, sorry, no more searches till next month, or the searches you can do you are returning really good results and you don't need to be more specific, or you have a really good CRM that you're already using, or a whole host of reasons. But if you're not finding roadblocks and you're doing everything and you're being successful, you may not need one of the paid versions. But again, the paid versions, if you use them, can give you so many more features, like the ability to do more specific searches, the ability to save lists of your prospects or connections, and give yourself notes. So there are definitely some things that make it very worthwhile. Plus, Sales Navigator, for instance, gives you a separate feed just from your prospects or the people that you have put in lists in that system. So rather than the really potentially noisy feed on regular LinkedIn with all sorts of stuff, it's much more specific and narrowed down. In fact, that was one of the questions I got today is there a way to make your feed more specific to the people you want? And so, yes, people often know, maybe they don't know actually, that up at the top of the regular feed, you can toggle it from top posts to most recent posts. It won't stay if you go away and come back, but it'll sort the information differently. You can also, of course, have a list or links to the people that you want to see content from and go directly to their activity feed rather than looking in the main feed. And there are other techniques as well. So those are some of the things I've been thinking about. Just to add about Clubhouse, if it's something you are interested in and want to learn more or want an invite, one of the things to do is apply on their website for the waiting list. And then if you were in someone's phone contacts, it may say to them, hey, so and so wants to get into Clubhouse. Should we let them in? If they don't have any more invites that they can give you. That I've seen that happen quite a few times. So definitely go apply if you want to check it out. If you are on Clubhouse, I'm going to be doing 2 rooms this Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern. I'll be with my friend Bryn Tillman. We'll be talking about leveraging LinkedIn for B2B companies. And then at 4 o'clock Eastern, I will be with Jeff Goldberg, a sales expert, and Ellen Volpe, a networking expert. And we'll be talking about combining LinkedIn, sales, and networking for that ultimate equation for business success. So I'm really excited to be doing that. Join me if you are there. I did make some events on LinkedIn, so where you can sign up, and I'm going to experiment with having people chat in the LinkedIn event while we're speaking on the Clubhouse app. A little experiment. You know I like to do that. Anyway, that's all for today, folks. Send me questions, comments, thoughts for my next LinkedIn Live that I will multi-stream to other places. Have a wonderful day. Stay well, everyone. Bye-bye.